A single book slipped from my arms and hit the floor. And in that heartbeat everything changed. A stranger's quiet voice, a brush of fingertips, and the kind of chemistry you don't see coming. One chance meeting, one late-night coffee, and suddenly my ordinary evening turned into the beginning of something unforgettable. Was it pure coincidence, or the start of the best story I'd ever live? Hey there, story lovers. Welcome to Blind Thoughts, where every night is an invitation to escape into something unforgettable. Please subscribe to Blind Thoughts and press the bell icon so you never miss our next story. I still remember the exact creak of the bookstore door that evening, the way it sighed as though it had been waiting just for me. After a day of endless emails and buzzing notifications, I needed quiet, and the shop's familiar scent of paper and coffee was the perfect refuge. The early autumn dusk spilled amber light across the crooked aisles, making every shelf glow like a secret. I'd promised myself I would pick up only one book for the weekend, but my heart never listens to such rules. Within minutes I was juggling a tower of novels, each spine a whisper of possibility. The stack grew so high I had to tilt my head to see over it, which is probably why the inevitable happened. A slim paperback slid sideways and tumbled down. I heard it thud against the wooden floor, then roll beneath a table leg. I exhaled a quiet groan and crouched awkwardly, careful not to drop the rest. Before my fingers could reach the runaway book, a warm baritone voice came from just behind me. "Need a hand?" I startled so hard I almost lost the whole stack. Turning, I found myself inches from a man I had never seen before. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and carried an easy calm, the kind of presence that fills a room without effort. His dark hair had a slight wave, and his eyes, gray flecked with green, caught the fading light in a way that made it impossible to look away. For a heartbeat, I forgot the book entirely. Yeah. Thanks, I managed. He crouched with unhurried grace and slid the book out from under the table, then stood and held it out. The scent of cedar and something warm, maybe roasted coffee, drifted from his shirt as he handed it to me. "You've got a whole library there," he said with a small grin. "Ambitious evening?" I laughed, feeling heat rise in my cheeks. I have a weakness for stories that don't fit on my shelf. "That makes two of us," he replied. "I'm Mason." "Harper," I said, shifting the stack so I could shake his hand. His grip was warm, confident but gentle. For a moment I noticed the faint calluses along his palm, and I wondered what kind of work he did that left a trace of effort and craft. We began to talk. At first about the book I'd dropped, then about the authors we both adored. I mentioned my obsession with 19th-century travelogues. He confessed a secret love for quiet poetry. Each exchange seemed to pull us closer, the rest of the bookstore fading until it felt like we were the only two people in that glowing, paper-scented world. When he suggested grabbing a latte at the cafe next door, I surprised myself by saying yes without hesitation. We walked side by side into the crisp evening, the city humming softly around us. The cafe was small and warm, the kind of place where the barista already knows your name by the third visit. We found a table by the window as the first stars began to pierce the twilight. Over steaming mugs, we traded stories like old friends. Mason told me about his job restoring historic houses, how he loved peeling back layers of paint to reveal hidden woodwork. I told him about my work as a freelance travel writer, how airports felt like second homes and how I collected tiny souvenirs. A stone from a foreign beach, a pressed flower from a distant garden. He listened as though every word mattered, his eyes never drifting to his phone or the bustling street outside. That kind of attention is rare, and it made me feel quietly luminous. Time melted. At some point the cafe lights dimmed and the barista began stacking chairs, but we were lost in conversation. Mason's humor was subtle and warm. He had a way of pausing just long enough to make me lean forward, eager for the next thought. We spoke of favorite cities, books that shaped us, the bittersweet ache of leaving places we loved. With each story he shared, I felt an unexpected pull, as if we'd been orbiting each other for years without knowing. When we finally stepped back into the night, the city had settled into a hush. A breeze swept down the street, carrying the scent of rain on warm pavement. We walked slowly, as if we both feared the moment might vanish if we moved too quickly. At the corner where our paths would split, he hesitated. "I'd like to continue this," he said, voice quiet but certain. Maybe a proper bookstore crawl sometime? I felt a smile stretch across my face. I'd like that. We exchanged numbers, and I watched him walk away, tall and steady beneath the streetlights. My heart beat with a rhythm that felt both brand new and oddly familiar. The next few days passed in a gentle blur. Mason texted the next morning, still thinking about that travelogue recommendation. I grinned at the screen and sent him the title, along with a half-serious challenge to find me a poem that could make me cry. He replied within minutes with a verse that nearly did. Our first official bookstore crawl happened the following Saturday. We met at a different shop across town, a maze of narrow staircases and hidden alcoves. We wandered for hours, reading lines aloud, swapping books back and forth, sometimes falling into comfortable silences. At one point he found a battered copy of a poetry collection and read a few lines in a voice so gentle it felt like a secret. Afterward we grabbed dinner at a tiny rooftop restaurant that overlooked the river. The sky blazed pink and gold as the city lights flickered awake. Mason told me about his grandmother, who taught him the art of woodworking, and I shared the story of my first solo trip, when I got lost in the winding streets of Lisbon but ended up discovering my favorite bakery. We laughed until our sides ached. Weeks turned into months, each meeting layered with new memories. Rainy afternoons spent in used book basements, lazy Sunday mornings with coffee and crossword puzzles, quiet walks through the botanical garden where autumn leaves blazed like fire. With every moment, the sense of serendipity deepened. It was as though that single dropped book had been the hinge on which an entire new life turned. I sometimes replay that first night in my mind, wondering how something so small could ripple outward so beautifully. If I hadn't picked up that extra novel, if I'd caught it before it fell, if Mason had chosen another aisle, so many little chances could have gone differently. Yet there we were, two paths colliding in a flash of cedar scent and soft words. Looking back now, I realize it wasn't just about finding love. Meeting Mason reminded me that the best stories often begin when we least expect them, in quiet corners and accidental moments. It taught me to stay open to chance, to let life surprise me, to believe that a single instant, a book slipping from my grasp, can rewrite everything. And every time I walk into that bookstore and hear the familiar creak of the door, I feel it again, the rush of that first spark, the way the world can change in the blink of an eye, and the quiet joy of a story that's still unfolding page by page.